Hello, and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show that is anything but typical. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host tonight is, of course, Vila Bianca.
Hello.
And true to her word and back again is Black Widow and ace advocate, Miss O'Kist. When Miss O'Kist was here with us in July to discuss asexuality, she told us about her recent autism diagnosis and is here to help us understand her journey of life and love on the spectrum.
Hi, and I'm glad that you guys would have me back again after being on twice now.
Yeah, no question. I'm technically counting that Black Widow episode, so this is a three-peat, right? That's something to celebrate.
I'm like the Steve Martin of secular sexuality.
I'll take it. Also, you guys, we are planning for Thanksgiving, and we're going to be doing another mailbag episode. So if you want to ask a question and have us read it on air, please email us at sex@atheist-community.org by November 19th. So that's next Friday, and you'll be able to get your question in under the deadline there. But tonight, if you have questions about asexuality or autism or just how to do the romance thing, reach out to us here at 512-991-9242, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
All right, so let's do it. Like I mentioned, last time you were here, you mentioned that you were adjusting to a new diagnosis. Tell us your story, if you will.
Whew. Yeah, I think actually when I was on last time, I was in the middle of talking to some people to try and get that, which was kind of a wild ride, actually. It has been like very eye-opening. Like, I get very excited now about learning all this stuff that everyone else is like, I've taken this for granted since I was 5. And I'm like, well, this is exciting new information for me. Like the COVID stuff has happened. So it's given me a lot of time to sit and reevaluate a lot of things. So I'm trying to figure out, where to go from here. Like, other things I might have done differently if I had had this information sooner. The answer is yes, probably. So now I'm kind of trying to figure out, what to do from there.
Yeah, well, what signs led you to getting here? I mean, what made you want to get tested or whatever else?
Man, like that's so for the signs. When I went for the evaluation with the adult specialist, I made a list of everything and I printed it out so I wouldn't forget. And there was like 7 pages. So apparently quite a lot. But
yeah, well, and also it sounds like you're a fairly like self-aware, introspective person. I mean, this must have felt like a lot.
Yeah, when I started looking through stuff, because I never thought about it much before, because, like it's something that people generally pick up on when you're a little kid. And I had a lot of problems in school when I was a little kid. So I kind of figured it would have been picked up on then, but I was wrong. And the reason for now was at the end of like last year, I hit like this really intense period of burnout, which I wasn't able to like take some time off or anything. And like by February, everything was just kind of a mess, if I'm honest. And like over the years, like as like a lot of people in my situation, like you build up all these like layers of masks to kind of like cover things, because there's always like repercussions, not necessarily like concrete punishments for like a lot of autistic traits, but like a lot of like a negative feedback loop that's like always running. So a lot of people, myself included, like build up all these kind of layers of protection to hide that side away. And like once like this burnout got as bad as it did, like one of the first things my brain was gonna drop was that, apparently. And my husband,
that sort of masquerade, that sort of like faking your way through a neurotypical world. Is that a fair way of framing it all?
Yeah, I mean, basically exactly that. It's exhausting. Like, it's something that I know a lot of autistic people do. And I don't think, like, I knew I did it, but I did not realize to what extent, quite frankly. And it was kind of, I think it was a shock to like my husband and a lot of other people when everything kind of started falling away. And my husband's like other partner she's like a mental health professional. She works with a lot of autistic people, has lots of like personal relationships and stuff with other autistic people. So she was the one who kind of started spotting things because she was, around her house a lot. And yeah, so like she was the one who kind of picked up on stuff. And I can't say much about my family because I don't know how much they know about stuff, but I am not a big anomaly in my family. So
sure.
a lot of things that I consider to be perfectly normal things apparently are not for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an idea of what was one or two of those things that just fell away and maybe it changed?
It's like a lot of like stimming behaviors, which like they're down in like the repetitive movement things. I personally have always been like a rocker, and I do a lot of like hand flapping a lot. The hand stuff I kind of like had replaced with this one. So if you ever see the behind the back scratch thing, that was like one of my covers for that particular stem, but they started like coming out more. Because normally it was something that was only really happen or I'd let out when I was by myself, but it got to like, fuck it, it's here now. And I was also having a lot of troubles with, I did not know that's what they were at the time, but like meltdowns and shutdowns, which have been a terrifying thing that have been happening my whole life with no explanation. And they're kind of awful and terrifying when you do know what they are. But when you have no idea why, like your brain's like, I'm taking the wheel, and yeah, it was kind of terrifying, to be honest. And they used to happen a lot when I was a kid or when I was a teenager, but as an adult, like it's kind of rare, like every few months maybe. But this was like happening like several times a week. So
Mm-hmm.
that got a lot harder to ignore. And
Well, a lot of people, when they're like given a diagnosis, it feels like, okay, they've just been handed a huge problem. And I'm hearing from you that at least part of it was a relief to be able to understand what those shutdowns were. I mean, how did it feel having that, news kind of delivered to you?
honestly, it was kind of the best day ever because like before the show I was talking about, therapy. Like I've been in therapy for about 16 years, and I got a long way with a lot of things, but a lot of things just nothing worked. And it was like this perpetual problem, like this perpetual cycle. And I had no idea why. And like getting that diagnosis suddenly put so many things into like perspective. And then I have like something that's actually actionable. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can work on figuring out like my limits so I don't end up burnout to the point where I can't take a shower. And I can like express what I need better so I don't end up like having a meltdown at the North Door or something. Like so it's kind of amazing. It was actually like I finally understood myself, and pretty much like all the 40 years up to that day, it was kind of wild. Like a lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm not. Like this is actually kind of great. So I mean, it's been a lot to adjust to, and there's a lot of reading and a lot of learning that had went with it. But it's a weirdly positive experience, which is not what most people expect someone to say.
Sure. Well, and I don't want to make too much of a digression, but just to, I guess, briefly touch on the North Door was this incredible venue here in town that you yourself and a number of amazing sex positive performers and just great community kind of formed around that. We're very sad to recently see leave. I was actually a goal of mine for a long time to get the owners and the managers on this show to talk about the culture and the community they created. So just a quick moment for all of those like very beautiful queer-centered businesses that are going through it right now.
I cried when we got the email. They were like,
A little bit.
we're like, can we keep keeping these shows we had booked not paying? They were like, no, it's like, so that was really disappointing. But
Yeah.
who knows what'll happen after COVID?
Well, I am very curious what it feels like now to not just sort of reinterpret yourself and to have like these sort of action items for the future, but to be looking back at your past and thinking like, oh, that's why I did that in high school, or oh, that's what that was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a lot of the last few months actually was going through all this like weird shit to me. Like Dusty's, anyone else is like, yeah. And I'm like, well, this is very exciting. But like, I mean, there was some things like some really like traumatic stuff that I hadn't been able to really work past from when I was like really little, which kind of made sense now. Like I was a very honest child, but everyone always thought I was lying about everything. So if anything ever happened where you were in trouble, I did not have the parent who was like, no, not my little. It was always like, oh, yeah, no, we'll bring her into the school. And I mean, like, when your parents always take the side of, like, you know, the kid that accuses you of stealing or whatever, it's like really confusing. It's like, why? But then I realized, like, I don't like eye contact very much, which I think came up on the Black Widow version of this show. And I look at the floor a lot, especially if I am in a really stressful situation. So anytime something happened as a kid, I'm like looking at my shoes and getting like my words get weird because that's just a thing that happens. So it probably looked like I was really shifty. And it's not that my parents, for some reason, decided I was like, you know, evil lying monster. It's just that I looked shifty and they didn't know any better. So it kind of reframed a lot of things, a lot of it for the better. Some of it was like frustrating because it's like, well, why did nobody really explore this sooner? But yeah, like a lot of things, even like why weird people would always come and talk to me on buses suddenly make sense. Like it was amazing actually. Like why did a lot of people think I was flirting with them when I'm not? Because one of the things I do a lot is I play with my hair when I'm nervous, which apparently is a flirting thing. And one of the ways I like to avoid eye contact is looking at people's mouths, which apparently is a flirting thing. And that is why I got accused of flirting a lot, was because I was nervous, looking at their mouth and playing with my hair. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, then I guess they weren't just randomly being angry about this thing. And yeah, like, God, everything, like friends that I'd lost along the way, like I could see what happened. Like it's been a lot of catalog of stuff to kind of go through. I think I've gone through most of it now. I'm sure there's something, but
it's so interesting and sad to think about the people who are like, oh, well, back in my day, people didn't have, you know, as much, like there weren't as many people with autism or there weren't as many people on the spectrum. It's like, no, there were just as many. It's just they didn't get this kind of revelation that
right.
You have gotten. They didn't get to look at their lives in that context and be like, oh, that's why these things are happening to me. It makes sense.
Well,
Right.
it's one thing to think about the parent that is, you know, having trouble trusting a shifty child, but then to also just think about the pseudoscience of like police interrogations and all these other aspects of our society that are just not interested in being diverse and understanding of different types of folks.
Oh, yeah. Like my friends have all got like if anything is ever going really sideways and you need to call someone for help, never call the police, please. Like there was one name, and I am blanking on the name because I'm really bad at it. I will look it up. But this is one kid. He ended up in jail from a car accident. He's autistic. He'd had like a traumatic brain injury, which, you know, made a lot of things worse. And he got in this car accident. And like echolalia is like a thing where people like repeat something, you know, over and over. And like the guy in the accident came out and was like, what are you doing? You're trying to fucking kill yourself. So the kid kept repeating that when the cops were on the scene, and he got sent down to jail for 50 years for a non-fatal car accident. and he was recently given a pardon, like yesterday, by the governor of Virginia. But things like that happen a lot, and because like the police don't know what to do, they're not trained, and a lot of like reactions and body language and stuff is very different to what they're expecting. So like I think a lot of people in the autistic community as a whole are just terrified of the police, like
Yeah.
a lot of people in America. But if you're like Black and autistic, it is not a great combo. I'm trying to find his name because
Yeah. No, I've got
Matthew
a story
Russian, that
pulled
was
up.
it. I'm
Mhm.
like, it's Matthew R. But yeah, I'm bad with names and I'm bad with faces. So
Yeah, and I'll put a link to that story in the show notes. But while V grabs us a call, because we've got a couple of people looking to call in, I guess I'm just curious with all of these moving pieces about your past, about your future, about sort of the new configuration of the world, how any of this changes how you see yourself.
um I think a lot kinder.
Hmm.
I was not very compassionate. It's like I could tell something was off or different. Like I do, like some interviews with like a lot of people. Like there was always something, and it was very obviously different. And I was like always trying to figure out why. And like one problem I have is I uncooperative face. If I can't see my face, it does its thing. It is not necessarily what I want it to be doing. So when I get like show photos back or video, sometimes I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why is it? Why? So I used to beat myself up over a lot of things. And kind of understanding where it comes from kind of made me a lot more compassionate towards myself, because before I was just like, working on the assumption that I was a neurotypical person that was bad at peopling, but that was my fault. And kind of understanding why some of like these like little weird things would happen kind of makes me less I'm not going to fight them, and I'm able to like accept them as just part of who I am, and kind of be like proud of some of them, because like it's a lot of people do these things and are in a similar place, and I think it would be a lot better for an awful lot of people if we could get to a point where people were more accepting of those kinds of presentations that people might have, and not necessarily see things that are maybe a little different as being bad. And
Mhm.
I think like I started showing myself the compassion that kind of think society as a whole could benefit from showing people.
Yeah, I mean, whether we're talking about self-understanding or just a broader understanding of our culture, I think that eventually leads to self-acceptance, and that's a beautiful value to hold on to.
Yeah.